Hi everyone, this is Mahesh from Techie Point. Today we are going to discuss about software testing and automation. So before discussing about software testing, let's understand what software is. Software is a collection of computer programs executed on a system to achieve a specific task. So in order to develop any software, it has to undergo one life cycle. That's called software development life cycle. So the abbreviation is SDLC. We call it as software development life cycle. So it has to go through some phases. There are different models. So this model which we are seeing is called waterfall model. And the first phase in this model is requirements analysis. So in this phase, the requirement of the software, what we want to achieve to develop this software would be discussed. Mostly business analysts will be involved in this phase, and the second phase is design phase. So once the requirements is reached, like what are the components needs to be developed and what would be the modules and how they communicate with each other, all this will be the high level architecture will be discussed in this phase. Mostly architects will be involved in this phase. Next phase would be development phase. The development phase is like where the actual implementation or coding for the product is done. Mm, Developers would be involved in this phase. And the next phase is testing. So once the product is developed, testing will be done to check the quality of the product. So testers are involved in this phase. And the last phase would be maintenance phase. So where the product is deployed on the production. So the product is goes live, and if there are any issues or if there are like any enhancements, so the that will be addressed in this phase. So this phase is called maintenance phase or deployment phase. Mostly support team will be involved in this phase. So this is like high level overview on software development lifecycle. Now let's go into in deep into testing. What testing is. So how to define testing? So evaluating the quality of the software to check if it meets the desired requirement. So we actually define the requirements and we actually verify if it is meeting if it is actually meeting the desired requirement. So that's how we can define the testing. So, but why do we need to test a product? Let's see what are the reasons for testing or what are the benefits that we get by testing. So, the first one would be customer experience. This we can understand by taking an example. Let's say, for example, you came to know from your friend or relative that a banking app is actually charging very less amount for the transfer of money. So you go and take your mobile, download the app, and you try to sign up. You see a error. So how do you feel? So it's a bad experience, right? You just go back and search for another app and do your task, right? And probably you may never return to this website or app again. So that's how maybe the customer would be lost here. So this is the customer experience. So that's the reason we need a product before launching. So that product needs to be undergo testing. The next thing would be cost effectiveness. Say for example, there is no testing and the developers are developed the product 100% and it went into the production. So if you see the errors there or any issues over there, so it has to come back, and if it is a serious issue, you just need to maybe you need to rewrite the entire product. So it is cost effective, right? So the testing needs to be done prior. So the next one would be human errors. We're all humans and we make mistakes, right? So even the developers, while they develop, so they actually may write code according to the requirement and might actually unknowingly leave some vulnerabilities for the security issues, or they may not consider the performance issues, right? So all these type of issues can be caught prior to the release if we do the testing on the product. The last would be customer satisfaction. At the end of the day, it's a product and it generates the revenue for us, right? So it has to ensure that it actually gives the value it promised for. So this is very important. So for that, this testing has to be done, and these are the, we can say these are like few reasons why we need to be test the product. like how we have development life cycle, we do have testing life cycle as well. So these are the phases in testing life cycle. The first phase is requirement analysis. As we had like in development phase, we do have requirement analysis like, but in this phase here, as it is testing life cycle, mostly testing team would be involved here, and the testing team manager lead, they all actually discuss about the requirement, and so that everyone are on the same page. Next phase would be planning phase, where only team manager and leads would be involved here. So they actually discuss the estimation of the work and the resources needed, what would be the software test management tools, what would be the bug tracking tools, automation tools, all these will be planned here in the testing planning phase. Next comes is the test case development phase, where we actually break the requirement into test scenarios and write the test cases for each test scenario. Next comes is the test environment, where like we prepare an integrated environment to test the software on. So here maybe say for example some softwares for installation itself, they might need Java to be installed, right? So all these type of we can call them as prerequisites. So mostly like with the help of DevOps team and developers, the test environment would be set up ready. Once we develop test cases and we have environment ready, we go for test execution and execute the test cases. So, and if they are not behaving according to the expected output, then we go and log the bugs. So this is what happens in the test execution phase. The last phase would be test closure, where we prepare the reports like how many functional test cases executed, how many not executed, what are the open bugs, everything will be documented in this phase. So this is like testing life cycle. This is a high level overview of the testing. Now comes like automation. So what is automation? So how can we define it? Performing a repetitive task with minimal or no human intervention. So why this is the definition of automation, right? So but why do we need to automate? So let's say for example there is a some login screen, right? So maybe let's take some example of Twitter. So you try to sign up. So say for example you are given this login screen. How do you test this? So you only have username and phone number, right? Or you can click this and give the email address here, right? So how do you test this? Say for example by for creating the name, right? So we may test like what are all the output to be, um, what are all the possible names, usernames you can give. So you can give all the small case letters, I can give capital letters here, uppercase, lowercase, and I can specify some numbers, and we can use some symbols here. All these, this is called test data, right? So in order to test a field itself, we have like multiple test data to be test data we need to use for testing the field. So this is called, so using multiple test data to test a field, right, is called retesting. So this is what retesting is. So in this case, like the manual effort would be huge, right? So there can be in the for the simple username itself, like we might write, write ending up like 8 to 10 test cases with the different test data. I mean test data here. So this is called retesting. In this case, it would be a tedious job for a user or a tester to actually do actually test for each test data. So in this case, automation will be very handy. So you write a script once and then you actually specify any number of test data, and you actually execute all the multiple test data for the same test case. Next comes regression testing. So what regression testing is? So you actually you actually executed some test cases on the product, right? So next you might get some issues or bugs, whatever we call it is. So then we log it, developer fix the issue. So you got the fix. Now you verify, do you verify only the fix? No, right? We also need to verify the feature itself, like whatever test cases you executed earlier, that test cases also needs to be executed again. So maybe in the real time, you won't actually get all the features at once, right? You in the sense, I mean testing here. So a tester gets features in like in builds, cycles, or revisions, versions, whatever we call it as. So here I'm calling it as builds. So you might get it in builds, right? So say for example, in the first build, you get some features, right? You are a tester here, and you are executing some test cases on the first build. You are tester. Say for example, you are executing. You have 20 test cases, and in the first build, 15 test cases got passed and 5 failed, right? So you log the bugs for the 5 test cases which are not working correctly. Then developer fix it, and he gives you another build 2, right? So you will pick up this build. So the tester picks up this build, and he has to test all the 20 test cases again, right? So repeating like all the test cases again, executing all the test cases again. Say for example, there are many any other test case failures here. Maybe this build 2 might have some other new features where you get some failures again. Some test cases might be failed again. So again, you go back and log the bugs. Again, there is another build you got it from the developer, right? Giving fix for that issues as well. So here itself, like you already uh, has 20 test cases, and you might have executed some more test cases here. So maybe it is around 30 test cases here. But one thing, if you notice, the same thing, same number of test cases you are executing in each build, right? Until there is a final build before the release. So you'll go on like executing the same test cases again and again, right? So how to avoid, we can't avoid this. We need to do this testing. This is called actually regression testing. So making sure that there is no regression, making sure that there is no feature broken because of new addition of a fix or feature is called regression testing. So we need to perform this regression test. But if you observe this, then as the number of builds goes on increases, the effort would also be increased. And if you notice, the same number of the same type of test cases we are executing again and again. So in this type of case situation or case also, we need like automation, and automation will be very helpful in such type of situations. Mostly automation suites are written for the regression testing. And next, so by this, like we automation actually saves time and money. So time automation, when you write an automation script, it would actually execute faster than the human interaction. That's how you save the time, and you can even run the execution scripts parallelly on different machines as well. That's how you save a lot of time and money. Obviously, like there can be hundreds of test cases which when executed manually need many resources, right? So when you write a script, so you might not need like too many resources to actually execute or test the test cases. So these are the advantages of few advantages of automating the features or automating the test cases. So it is not like you can actually automate anything or every time. Say for example, you might be like there can be few days left before you release the product. So in that case, if you have some new feature, you should not attempt to actually automate those features. In that case, you should actually do the test cases manually, execute the test cases manually, and release the product. Maybe you can take that as a backlog and automate it later. So so it's not feasible to automate like every time. And also it's not you can automate anything. Some things like captcha can't be automated. There can be some complex graphs which only naked eye can actually figure it out whether it is correct or not. In that situations, you can't automate. That test cases needs to be marked manual, and those has to be executed manually. All right. So in this session, we discuss like what is software testing, why do we need testing, what is automation, and why do we need to automate. All right. That's it, guys. That's it for this session. Thanks. Thanks for watching.